My name is Subhachi Trali. I am the Program and Research Director at the Asian American and Pacific Islanders Commission. I oversee the Youth Council and support Youth Council Coordinator in guiding this program, and we are so thrilled to have you with us today for our Youth Council Showcase. Our Youth Council Coordinator, Ashley Shan, was not able to make it with us today in person, but she has sent a video, so let's watch.
Hi, my name is Ashley Shan. I'm a recent graduate of Williams College in Williamstown, Massachusetts, out in Western Mass. And I have also served as the Asian American Pacific Islander Commission's Youth Coordinator of the Youth Council for around the past 4 years. I am so thankful to the Commission for providing a space for youth across Massachusetts to advocate for themselves and speak out about issues that are facing their communities. It has been such a gratifying and fulfilling experience for me to learn about the issues that are facing AAPI youth all across the state, and to also provide an avenue and a space for these youth to speak out on these issues and to learn more about the diversity that exists all throughout the Commonwealth. I am so proud of this year's Youth Council cohort and the community projects that they've designed, and I cannot wait for everyone to learn more about what we've been doing over the past few years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. It is now my pleasure to introduce and welcome the Secretary of the AAPI Commission, Bahara Hussaini, who will kick off our event with official opening remarks.
Hi everyone, my name is Bahara Hussaini and I serve as the Secretary of the Asian American and Pacific Islanders Commission, and it's an honor to welcome you today at the State House on behalf of the AAPI Commission and also our supporters. So I would read from this because there are a lot of good information, so I don't want to miss any of them. So AAPI Commission was originally established on October 29, 2006 as the Massachusetts Asian American Commission. In 2021, we officially expanded our name and scope to the Asian American and Pacific Islanders Commission to better reflect the communities we serve. Today we are a body of 21 commissioners, each appointed by various staff officials who work collectively to uplift, advocate for, and celebrate the over 500,000 Asian American and Pacific Islanders living across Massachusetts. Our mission is twofold: to celebrate the contribution of AAPI individuals across state and to address the unique needs and challenges faced by our communities. From language access and disaggregated data to mental health representation and anti-Asian and anti-immigrant hate, we are here to listen, to act, and to build a more inclusive Massachusetts for all. The AAPI Commission Youth Council was created with the same spirit in mind. The idea for the Youth Council was first brought forward by the AAPI Commission's Education Committee, born out of real concern raised by AAPI students across the Commonwealth. Stories of racism in schools, isolation, and a lack of meaningful change in their districts. From the start, the intent has been clear: to elevate youth voices and promote leadership among AAPI youth in Massachusetts. The Youth Council's mission is to empower young people by amplifying their lived experiences and helping them build the tools to effect meaningful social change. Through collaboration with commissioners, staff, and community partners, our youth counselors lead policy advocacy, civic engagement, and creative community action. This year marks the second year that the program was redesigned to more deeply root in the community impact. Each youth counselor was empowered to identify a challenge in their own community, design a project to address it, and lead its implementation. These projects are not hypothetical. They are grounded in lived experience, shaped by culture, identity, and made possible through the passion and leadership of the AAPI youth. Behind the scenes, Ashley, Sabacha, commissioners, and our broader AAPI Commission Team provided constant support and mentorship throughout the year to ensure these projects reflected the Council's core values: youth leadership, cultural relevance, and community impact. We are so proud of what this cohort has accomplished, and even more excited to see what they can do next. Thank you for joining us today to recognize their work, celebrate their growth, and stand with us in continuing to empower the next generation of AAPI leaders in Massachusetts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bahara. The next portion is going to be Youth Council project presentations, and I'd like to welcome David Goeb, who is a junior at Lexington High School, to present his community project.
Hi everyone, I'm David Goeb, and I'm honored to present my project, the AAPI Athletic Youth Equity Initiative. In Massachusetts and across the country, AAPI youth face deep, often invisible barriers at all levels of athletics. Harmful and systemic barriers and significant underrepresentation leave many AAPI youth disengaged and unheard. These challenges arise during crucial years of growth and development, where sports can play a transformative role. My project uses two connected strategies. First is grassroots advocacy, working directly with youth and families through training, race participation, and direct support. And second is taking the data, stories, and momentum we build to support long-term policy reforms that support AAPI athletic equity. And I launched the Dragon digital platform, which as a central hub for registration, storytelling, achievement highlights, and project updates. I created the Unsung Heroes campaign to celebrate the unsung heroes such as Robert Sopakar, who quietly support AAPI youth in sports. I raised more than $1,500 through individual contributions and organizational support. This support allowed us to get 100% free registration, free athletic t-shirts, and professional pre-race training sessions. And so we launched the Dragon Youth Running Team. More than 100 AAPI youth and families showed up through 4 training sessions across March and April. And Jack Fleming, CEO of the BAA, strongly endorsed this initiative and gave an inspiring speech. In May, we became the second largest team at the Belmont AAPI 5K and became the third largest team at the Lexington AAPI 5K. And we amplified our voice through the central online digital platform, the Belmont Voice, EATV, Bar TV, public speaking at the Massachusetts State House, and stepping on stage at the Boston Common. And the Free to Run was the culminating moment of Phase 1. AAPI youth stepped onto the historic Freedom Trail and then stepped on stage at the Boston Common, where we passionately advocated our project. And the phase 1 of this initiative is a monumental success. We recognized AAPI youth with awards to celebrate growth and community impact. AAPI youth did not just show up, we are changing the narrative. The core objectives of this initiative for long-term systemic change cannot be completed in a single year. Looking ahead, for Phase 2 is about culminating the momentum and turning it into long-term systemic change. Thank you.
We can take one question for David about his project. Does anybody have a question or a comment?
I just wanted to comment. I think the work that you did is so amazing. And I really liked how you focused on athletic equity. This was the first time I've ever seen this issue brought to the mainstream viewpoint, and I just really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Another round for David. Next, we have have Dia Bandari, who is from Norwood and is a senior who will present on her project.
So my name is Dia Bandari, and my project was essentially on including AAPI authors, narratives, and stories into school curricula. And for some personal background, this project was really significant for me personally because I always was a avid book fan growing up, and I was the biggest reader. And oftentimes I just wouldn't notice my culture and my traditions being reflected in the stories I would read, nor characters looking like me in the stories that I would read. And so I thought the best way to sort of tackle this problem that I'm sure many other Asians and AAPI youth are affected by, I decided to take on this project. So my project was essentially divided into 3 sections. For the first part, I was able to integrate 2 AAPI authored books into my high school's reading curricula. And so this was the first book chosen, and this is required for 10th graders. And then this was our second book chosen. And then for the second part of my project, I also wanted to have a lot of in-person events just because I feel like it's really important to build community and sort of have just people to talk to while also immersing yourself in AAPI stories. And so I decided to have a showcase within my school's library throughout the month of May, which was AAPI Heritage Month. And it included over 13 titles, and these are just some of the ones that I had. And for the second part of my project, I'm the president of my school's Asian Cultural Club, so in collaboration, we held a month-wide event that was blind date with books. And so essentially we wrapped up around 8 books, I believe, which were all AAPI authored and focused on AAPI characters, and distributed them for free thanks to the Youth Council's funding for students across the school. And then the last part of my project was a toolkit, which basically I wanted to highlight the importance of AAPI inclusion in reading and high school curricula. And then I also wanted to support educators in creating a more inclusive reading curriculum. And lastly, by sort of showcasing my own project, I wanted to sort of enable other students to carry out similar efforts within their school districts, and also just to sort of take inspiration, maybe even check out a couple of the books that I recommended, and to sort of take it as suggestions to read for fun as well. And so, just to wrap, I just really think that this is a huge issue facing a lot of AAPI youths. I think AAPI authors have become very, very popular in the last couple of years. I definitely for sure have my favorites, but I definitely think in school reading in specific, a lot of the classics that we read tend to not really focus on Asian history and just Asian authors in general. And so that's why I decided to take on this project, and I hope similar efforts are made in the future as well, and I hope I continue doing them too. Thank you.
Any questions for Dia? Any comments? Yes.
Thank you. That was a really interesting presentation, and thanks for working on that. I was also wondering, was it in the library, was it difficult to find AAPI authors? If you were looking at all the various ethnicities, were there some that were easier to find than others?
Yeah, so I think it just for me kind of depended across the things that I did. For just the general blind book dates and the books that I was able to add to my library, I think I definitely had a lot more creative freedom to sort of pick any genre and any authors. And so I have my own favorites. I also just researched with a couple of the ACC Asian Cultural Club members at my school, and we had a huge list of all the books. It was a bit trickier to find books to include into the high school's reading curricula in general because they're a lot more strict on kind of what sort of literature is being promoted. And so I think that was a bit more trickier for me. But I ended up choosing the 2 books that I did, mostly because I thought that they focused on an important part of either Asian history or just sort of Asian, or AAPI rather, just issues faced. So I think that was more trickier, but I think that that's kind of the route I took.
Thank you, Dia. Our next youth council, Rachel Roblinski, is from Western Mass, from Monson. She is unable to be with us today, but she did send a little video of her project.
Everybody, I'm going to be talking about my community event I put on a few times this year called Healthy Steps. A little bit about me before though. My name is Rachel Oblinski. I'm a senior a graduated senior from Pathfinder Regional Vocational Technical High School, and I'm from Hampden County, specifically Munson, Massachusetts. A little bit of inspiration about my event. I dedicated my entire healthcare career to having a pretty intense formal healthcare education. I even have 2 medical licenses, but in my training, I realized that there was a lot of barriers between patients and providers, and there's a gap to that care, and I want to lessen that gap as much as possible. So a few of my project details. Fortunately, I didn't require too many materials, and the only thing I really wanted was stationery supplies because I wanted to make sure it was physically and hands-on, because as someone who goes to a tech school, having a short attention span and listening to lectures is something I struggle with all the time, so I wanted to make sure people were physically working and collaborating together. And I was lucky enough to partner with the Palmer Public Library in my school, where I was able to run my event twice free of charge, which I'm so grateful for. And my goal of this event was to bridge the gap between patient and provider and create an overall safer space and more comfortable space in the healthcare field, where there was less distress when getting care. And its impact, like I said, I was able to run my event twice, once for the general public and once at my school and my technical program for future healthcare workers of America, which I'm so grateful for. And I feel that during this event, we all were able to have a more mutual understanding and find a way to definitely lessen these gaps, not just as patients, but also as providers, which was super important to me. So I'm so grateful I got to run it, especially twice. Thank you all for following up on my journey, and please feel free to reach out to me, whether it's through my LinkedIn or my email. Unfortunately, I cannot be there today, but thank you all once again.
Next up is Anthony Yu Chang Liu, who is from Native Mass.
Is this different? Oh, okay. So, AAPIC commissioners, fellow youth council members, and esteemed guests. My name is Anthony Liu, and I am a graduated senior from Natick High School, and my project is called Project Stick Figures, which is a 2-pronged project, which has to focus on addressing mental health through a data collection survey and drawing stick figure comics to increase Asian American representation in the mental health space. So, what is Project Stick Figures? So, Project Stick Figures, allow me to draw this project more in detail. So, I first collect AAPI mental health stories through a survey, and in the survey, I collect AAPI opinion on how best to address mental health issues, because we know it exists, but what strategies are best for AAPI is what I intend to find out. I also collect stories from the respondents as well, and then with the stories, I can turn them into stick figure comics, which I then post on Instagram. What was my inspiration for this project? Well, people close. I had this person who was really close to me. She was struggling with some mental health issues, and that was a really big problem for her and between her and her family. She didn't feel like she was really represented in the media she was seeing, so I decided to do a project to try and address that. And I believe that people are more inclined to be receptive to things such as comics or simple stories. Because when I was in elementary school, when Dia talked about how she liked her books, I also liked my comic books when I was a little kid, and I believe I learned a lot through there. So simple yet effective messaging can really get the point home to many people. And also, I'd like to shout out Yunkei, who did a project similar to this last year, and he was also a source of my inspiration for my project this year too. And some of my goals I already aforementioned, but this is just a fancier transition slide for your viewing pleasure. Up next, I'll talk about how the project was conducted. So this is my Instagram account, and on the Instagram account, I linked my health form, which I then collected respondents with by printing out a QR code and then going around to events such as New in Taiwan Day, or my school's Lunar New Year Festival, which had around 2,000 people for the New in Taiwan Day event and around 500 people for my school's Lunar New Year event. And what I did was I put around six or seven posters around walls at my school, and I also put a poster on me, and I just walked around asking people to fill out the poster. And for the comics itself, I'd like to shout out my friend Kabir. He lent me his drawing pad when I didn't have one, and thank you to Ashley and the fellow youth council commissioners for getting me this drawing pad so I could draw the stick figure comics. So what are some of the comics? The comics range from stories such as college discussions with parents to divorce. And what else? Oh yeah. So up here is a feedback I received from the forum. It was really encouraging to see that these stories did actually have an impact on at least a member in our Asian American community. And up next, I have the survey results from the survey I conducted. Since I do not have time to present all of the data, I put them all into tiny pamphlets here, which I will distribute after the presentation. And this is a brief overview of some of the statistics. Most of these questions are focused about what strategies are best used, what strategies can be best adopted by mental health advocates, and how can you frame the discussions of mental health in order to encourage discussions about this issue. And that's it for my project. Thank you guys so much for listening. And I'll distribute out the
Does anybody have any questions for Anthony? Anthony, can you take a question?
Of course.
First of all, I want to say that I'm really appreciative of what you're doing. I've also experienced some backlash about mental health awareness within the Asian community, and I was wondering if you have received any backlash for wanting to raise Asian mental health awareness from the Asian community, specifically in older generations or people who are just not ready to address mental health.
I was fortunate enough to actually get a lot of support from the Asian community about this issue. For example, when I went to Union Taiwan Day, I met this lady who was actually really interested in this specific field, and she also gave me a lot of support in trying to reach out to, in terms of reaching out to mental health groups, such as she tried to connect me to the Asian American Women's Health in Boston.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was overall there wasn't really much pushback in terms of cultural dissonance.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, maybe it's a sign that Asian Americans are more ready to discuss this issue.
Yeah.
And it's actually I actually addressed this as one of the questions. It's question 6, I believe, or question 6. Question 6 is about what is the best way to frame mental health discussions to make it more less of a stigma to be discussed in the community, and the biggest result was connecting it with physical health, because in our communities, physical health is a really emphasized aspect, and by connecting mental health with physical health, it's really getting the point across to older generations who may be a bit more averse to this discussion, but I feel like we're starting to make a change on this issue.
Thank you so much.
Next up is Chahat Kalia, who is from Somerville.
Hi there, my name is Chahat Kalia. I'm from Somerville and I'm a recently graduated senior. So for my project with the AAPI Commission's Youth Council, I decided to make a community tree. So what does this entail? Basically, I wanted to design an interactive art piece, which in my case was a community tree, and I had help from Somerville High School's Day Club to both build it and install it, and I partnered with the Somerville Cambridge Asian Festival and made it so that the attendees of the festival from the Cambridge and Somerville and Greater Boston area were able to interact with this tree and add pieces of what it meant to be AAPI, or messages to other members of the AAPI community or just the general broader Greater Boston community. And the goal behind this was to foster a connection between the AAPI community and Massachusetts, which is very diverse. So why did I pick this? There's many ways that I could have, or many routes that I could have taken with this project, but I decided to build an interactive art piece. So art isn't something I'm necessarily good at, but I've always been really in awe of artists, so this was my tribute to that. And I recognize that AAPI youth often do not see their stories or cultural identities represented like publicly and boldly. And the idea behind this was that like I recognize that there's a lack of visibility, and that can make it so that people feel isolated. So this project was to connect like the broader AAPI community in Massachusetts together through a collaborative art piece and through something that anybody could engage with. So the materials I used to build the tree, I built it myself. It was around like, I wanna say 7 feet tall. And I just built like, I had 2 concrete form blocks as a base. I stacked them together. I used bamboo sticks for branches. And I had to spray paint the top of the tree and cut it into like a cone shape. But if you have any like more specific questions about like how to build a tree, I can get into that like later. You can ask me later. And then I had wooden flowers and butterflies for people to write messages on. Oh yeah, and these are just the step-by-step instructions if anybody needs that. And then at the festival presenting, basically I had to reconstruct the tree when I got there, and I had help from Somerville's Day Club to do that. And then after that, students or just community members ranging from kids to elderly members of the community could just come by and write down messages that other people could see or wishes they had for the future. And yeah, this is just some examples of what people wrote and did. And the community impact behind this was to foster connection and dialogue among like diverse AAPI individuals and families across Massachusetts, and really just to create, increase the visibility of AAPI voices. And there were over 40 messages on the tree. And this is what it looked like in the end. And this is us like building it together. Yeah, thank you.
Any questions or comments for Chad?
Well, thank you, it was great, and I love the idea that the tree, so it's like sustainable, and since it's the paper, and so I think like, what did you find was like the most interesting messages that on the tree?
I was surprised by like how many like very young people, like how much they had to say. I remember there was this student, I'm guessing that she was in elementary school, and she was talking about how to be proud of your identity and where you come from. And growing up, I guess I never really saw my identity that way. I grew up like in a very predominantly white community, so I didn't see many identities like mine, but it just made me so happy to see somebody encouraging others at like a very young age to feel proud of who they were. Yeah.
Thank you. Our next youth council presentation is from Emily Wu. She is from Lexington. She could not be here with us today, but she sent a little recap summary of her project.
Everyone, my name is Emily Wu, and here's a quick summary of my community project, Rewriting the Narrative, Amplifying AAPI Veteran Experiences. So my project had 2 segments. Part 1 was a survey and interview segment, and this consisted of a survey which had 171 email correspondence as well as 77 Google form responses. Below are just a couple of data points. I guess the first one, 94.8% of respondents reported experiencing microaggressions while serving. I also had a lot of additional comments, and people reached out through email sharing how they thought this was an incredibly meaningful initiative that really shed light on their population and small community. My interview project was with one-on-one with an AAPI veteran, and I'm currently working on publishing that in Lexington Times. Part 2 was the Memorial Day ceremony. Just some highlights. We had a poetry contest which highlighted student poets from across the greater Boston area, and we also had a poppy installation with 500 handmade poppies, which is in the Lexington Town Center. Thank you so much, and please reach out if you have any questions.
Next up is Yun-Kei Leong, who is from Western Mass, Fletchertown, Massachusetts.
So
So my name is Yu-Pei. I'm from Belchertown, Massachusetts. I just most recently graduated from Northern Mount Herman. I'm ethnically Chinese, and something about Western Massachusetts is that it's really, it can be really lonely, you know? For me, the closest Starbucks is maybe like a 10-minute drive away. Stop and Shop is another like 15 minutes, and just to get to the town center, it'd be like 25, you know? Just to go to Amherst. And this is my inspiration, that sometimes feeling so alone, it can be really isolating, and you can kind of get into the spiral of like, hey, I'm alone, I'm the only one feeling this, and it keeps on going down and down. So my inspiration for this website was to share stories, some individual, some from my friends, to create the spaces where, hey, you might be going through something alone, but you're never really alone. And this is part of my website, and for example, there's stories, personal one, like cutting fruits. So whenever my parents and I got into an argument, which was really frequent, especially around middle school, they never really apologized to me. But they'll always cut some apples or watermelon and like open my room door, put it there and leave. They never really apologized. I never really understood it. I don't think I still will understand it, but it's just something that I appreciate them doing, even if I don't get sorry. Or for example, one of my friends from school, every morning she'll wake up in the winter and she'll hate walking to the dining hall. It was a 15-minute walk from her dorm to the dining hall, and she just feels so isolated in the Western Mass cold winters. And it's just a collection of stories. There's 9 of them right now, and I'm currently expanding. And this is what I hope for my project to impact. I hope to increase awareness and create a connection of like, each of these stories are individual, and each of them are different, but there's somehow like a little thread that threads through all of them, and hopefully that can create a little bit of connection with the community. And next step, I hope to collect more stories and start marketing. And this is my contact information. Thank you.
Questions, comments for Ian K and his project? Bahara?
Yeah, thank you for doing this. So from the stories that you collected, like I see that you mentioned about mental health, and why do you have like mental health card?
For me, I just remember like when I first applied to the youth council 2 years ago at this point. I just remember I was coming out of sophomore year. I just transitioned to a new school, and I felt really alone, you know, because I went from a school of 90 of the whole upper school, which is like 4 grades, like around 20 to 30 kids each, into a school where I'm 150, and I felt super alone. And I just remember that feeling while applying. So I think last year I did another mental health project, which was more research focused. And this year I was thinking, it's like, hey, what else can I do? And I think for me it was like the interpersonal skills that mattered.
Thank you. Not to the stories that you collected, what really resonated with you?
I think one of my friends told me a story about his younger sister was more successful than him. And I don't have a younger sister, I have an older sister. But I felt like the same way. Sometimes I felt like, for example, I'm a ski racer. And I started ski racing because my sister started ski racing. I joined the commission at first because my sister joined the commission at first. I applied to the same colleges as my sister because she applied to them first. So sometimes I kind of felt like I was following her shadow a little bit. So that resonated with me.
Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you, Ian K. The next youth counselor is Jason Yin from Weston, Massachusetts. He couldn't be with us here today, but he has a short summary of his project.
Everyone, my name is Jason Yin, and I'm really sorry that I can't be here in person today because I'm currently traveling. But today I'm going to introduce my project, Youth AAPI Resource Navigator Program. My family moved to the U.S. in 2022, and language barriers made everyday processes difficult. So I created this project to help other families to go through this process easier. And I built bilingual guides for RMV, school enrollment, school forms, ESL support, libraries, and community resources. And I also created Weston-specific guides from preschool through high school. And the high school guide covers course selection, AP and honors options, athletic, score usage, and college planning. And my volunteering team shared the resources through WeChat groups, reaching over 500 community members. And the project reduces confusion and helps students transition more smoothly. And my main challenges were accuracy, clarity, and volunteering recruitment. And I hope these resources continue supporting more immigrant families. Thank you.
Next up is Sky Morishita, who is from Boston and is a sophomore in high school.
Hi everyone, my name is Sky Morishita. As Shubecha mentioned, I'm from Boston and I go to Milton Academy. And this year was kind of my first year diving into advocacy work. So I'm super grateful for this incredible opportunity to be a part of the Youth Council. So my project was called Food for Me, and essentially it was a partnership with the Boston Red Cross Food Pantry to better understand the experience of the AAPI pantry clients, as well as identify ways in which the pantry can better support the AAPI community. So you might be wondering, why Red Cross? For those of you who might not be as familiar with the Red Cross organization, although I'm sure you are plenty, it is an organization combating food insecurity, and Red Cross organizations have very, very diverse clientele bases, including a very large AAPI population. But when I was talking to David Andre, who is the director of food and nutrition programs, it came to light that there's very limited information on client experiences and whether current services, reflected the needs of the community. And so, just as a personal information, I've been volunteering there for the past 2 years. So I've really grown to love the Red Cross Food Pantry community, and I think I've learned and grown so much there, and so this is kind of an opportunity for me to give back to the Red Cross Food Pantry, as well as elevate some of the AAPI voices. So this is just a very quick snapshot, but that's me right there, and this is kind of what the survey process was. And so this is the line where they enter to get their food, and I was just stationed right there. So for Red Cross, it was a little bit tricky because when I was talking to Mr. Andre, he told me that it would be hard to focus or pinpoint on the AAPI community that goes to the client base, which made a lot of sense. And so as a quick way to kind of work around that, I instead created and translated our survey into I had four different surveys. So I had an English, I had a Chinese traditional, a Chinese simplified, and a Spanish survey. And I handed these out, so I administered these to everybody who was in line. And then from that my project became kind of two parts. So the first part was gathering, collecting all this data from the whole Red Cross Food Pantry community and delivering that into a report to the Red Cross Food Pantry leaders. And then the second part was kind of to take the AAPI portion of that data and to find something about the needs or desires of the AAPI community and see how I could address that. So overall, we had 66 individual surveys completed, which I think is pretty impressive given the weather. It's super stormy. But yeah, I'm very, very proud of that. And then, so just as some impact, we had 45 total API client voices documented, and we identified a desire for culturally relevant foods, which I think is the biggest thing that came out of this project. And then, of course, these findings can inform future pantry decisions. So these are just some very quick pictures of something I designed for the food pantry survey process. And it was essentially just saying, oh, if you complete the survey, you'll get a free bag. And so it gave some incentive for the people in line to fill out the survey. For some next steps, the first one would be to continue to explore partnerships with local groceries and other food sources for food donations to the pantry. The second would be to work with leadership at Red Cross to develop ideas for incorporating more culturally relevant foods especially during major food or cultural holidays. And then the third is to continue gathering this client feedback and to help use that feedback to help guide future improvements. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, please contact me.
Any questions or comments for Sky and her project?
Yeah, thanks so much. That was really interesting. So I was curious, what is the maybe like the top food people sort of said that they would like to have? Or was it like no culturally diverse food and it was just...
Yeah, so it wasn't a particular food. In the survey, I kind of asked if the food that is given at the pantry kind of addresses their cultural, dietary, religious needs or wants. And because the demographic of the clientele is so wide, there is a lot of Vietnamese people that come in. There are a lot of like Cantonese people. So there's a lot of different, within like the AAPI, there are a lot of different ethnic groups, and so there wasn't really one clear, oh, like I really like pho, or like, you know, stuff like that. And so I think there's not necessarily one specific type of food that was mentioned, but I think more broadly, the sentiment of wanting to bring in more culturally relevant food, especially during like, you know, big holidays where it can kind of feel a little bit, you know, isolating and alone when you're away from your home country. I think it's super important that to realize that, you know, food is not just nourishment, it's also, you know, comfort. It can be more than just nutrition. And so, yeah.
Thank you, Sky.
The next youth council member is Juliet Dong, who is from Acton, Massachusetts, and she has sent a summary of her project.
Hi everyone. Today I'd like to share a project that has been incredibly meaningful to me that I've been working on for the last few months, called Together in Motion, a K-pop dance therapy program. This program was designed to create a space where individuals with special needs could build confidence, express themselves creatively, and engage with Asian culture through music and dance. When I first began thinking about this project, I noticed an important gap in my community. In Acton, my hometown, approximately 30% of students are Asian American, and also 30% of students are considered high needs. Despite these significant populations and this overlap, I found very few programs that address the intersection of disability inclusion and cultural engagement. Many existing programs for individuals with special needs focus on academic support, life skills, or vocational preparation. While these opportunities are extremely valuable, fewer programs emphasize creativity, cultural exploration, confidence building, and community. I wanted to create a program centered on those experiences. As a lifelong dancer and someone passionate about cultural education, I saw dance as the perfect medium. Dance is universal. It allows people to communicate, connect, and express themselves regardless of ability level. K-pop in particular offered an engaging way to introduce participants to contemporary Asian culture through music, movement, and storytelling. The goal of Together in Motion was simple: to create a safe, creative, and culturally aware environment where participants could express themselves through movement, build confidence and independence, develop social connections, experience the joy of dance, and explore AAPI culture through K-pop music and choreography. This project would not have been possible without strong community partnerships. We partnered with the Jasmine Cultural Arts Foundation, a youth-led nonprofit that I lead that is dedicated to promoting cultural inclusivity and the arts. Through the foundation, the Vice President Megan Lee served as a co-instructor alongside me. In addition, we collaborated with Riverside Community Care, a local NGO that provides services and support for individuals.
Just due to time, I'm going to move on to the next presentation. Okay, but she did a K-pop inspired dance therapy, and unfortunately she is not able to be here with us today, but let's give her a round of applause. Sorry, I think it's... Next up is Annika Mina Isabel Mabano from Norwood, Massachusetts.
Hi, my name is Annika, and I'm a recently graduated senior from Norwood, Massachusetts. And this is my project, Nourished by Culture. So, for our own reasons, I have no doubt that we've all been thinking of ways we can eat healthier. And as a first-generation Filipino American, I have felt guilty pushing away and forgetting about food that's tied to my heritage under the guise of eating healthier. Like, for example, my parents would cook some delicious chicken tinola, and I'd be like, I just wanna have some Chipotle, and I felt so guilty about that. And I realized that I wasn't alone. A lot of Asian youth, like my age, felt the same. And so Nourished by Culture is an online web platform which displays a bunch of healthy Asian dishes. And So that's one of our goals, to highlight healthy AAPI dishes. They feature hand-picked AAPI dishes that I interviewed people for. And like the secondary goal was to source helpful nutritional data, which I pulled from reliable sources like USDA Food Central. And that sort of helped contextualize like the health of the dishes. And third was to provide cultural context. Originally, I wanted to emphasize the nutritional part of my project. However, due to like restrictions, like I needed to talk to a dietitian, I could not move forward with that. And so I focused a lot on the interview portion, and I ended up having amazing conversations with my peers around dishes from their childhood that they thought that they like hated when they were a kid, but began to like more when they were older, and also realized like the health value of it. And so this was a list of some of the questions that I asked people. One of the questions that I really liked was, do you think people misunderstand this dish or your cuisine in general? Which I thought was really interesting, like based on which people I talked to. And so while this project exists on a website, and you can Google all of the dishes that I put on this website, the value of this project came from the conversations I had with my peers, because I felt like I was able to get them to think more about the dishes they ate and sort of like reevaluate like how they thought about their cultural foods. And so the build process, this just shows some of the code that I made for my website. I didn't use a website like Squarespace or anything to build my website. I sort of coded it from scratch, which was a challenge of its own. This shows some like samples of my website. This is just like placeholder info for the nutritional profile of one of our dishes. And this is like a work in progress sort of carousel from my website. This is a dish that I collaborated with an artist with to make. And she's around my age, and I'm so happy that we got funding to be able to pay her. So thank you for the commission for that. And so we're working on other dishes, and this was just like a carousel. These are some of the places that I got dishes from. I really wanted to do more, but I was limited by the interview sort of aspect of my project, which also like made it better in my opinion, but it did limit me to what places I was able to get. So yeah, thank you. I'm realizing I'm missing a slide. So for next steps, like I really want to make the code for my website open source, which means that anyone can see it. And so if they're inspired to make a website by themselves, they can go take a peek at my code, which I think is great because it empowers youth to sort of like improve like their technical skills. And another aspect of my project that I did not get to was I had originally wanted to partner with Massachusetts businesses to sort of promote their dishes and like direct people to their restaurants based on my website. So that's a possible future direction I could take this. So yeah, my name is Annika, and that was my presentation. Thank you.
Questions or comments from Annika? Yes.
First of all, mabuhay. I'm also Filipino-American. It's great to have some Filipino-American representation, especially when it comes to food. There's not a really big Filipino population here in Massachusetts, so thank you. And I also wanted to make a comment that it's true, there's a lot of misconception around Filipino food or just Asian American food in general about how it's unhealthy or we don't eat fried foods, when that's really not the entire context of it. So I'm glad that you're sharing some nutritious recipes to better reflect our culture. So thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to add that like as youth, like we're so like advertised to go for options that are labeled high protein, high fiber. Like for example, like not to throw shade, but I love Chipotle and Sweet Green, but I feel like it's not the same when you interpret dishes that are from like our like Asian countries. They are nutritional like in their own way, but they're just not like labeled high protein. Like there's other ways to measure nutrition.
Thank you. Next up is Grace Sang, who is a senior from the high school.
Hi everyone, my name is Grace Sang. I just graduated from Native High School, and my project is called AAPI Unmuted. My name is pretty easy to pronounce, and that's actually why my parents chose it. After living in the US for 5 years, they were already used to people struggling with their own names, So they picked Grace off of a list of popular American names and tucked my Chinese name into the middle. But as I was growing up, I noticed how differently people treated the names of my AAPI peers. Some of them made snide remarks, others laughed through horrible mispronunciations, and some didn't even want to try. And while my friends thought that it was fine and they were used to it, I thought that this was a problem, and I learned that this problem had a name, name-based microaggressions. These might seem small, but they're easily internalized, especially by young students, and they teach AAPI youth to hide their culture and constantly remind them that they do not belong. And these small moments add up, and they don't stay in childhood. A 2023 study found that nearly 80% of Asian Americans feel they don't fully belong here, and I wanted to change that, starting with names. So I created AAPI Unmuted, a social media series where AAPI community members share these stories and meanings behind their names. My first step was launching the series. I chose to post the episodes on Instagram because it is so widely used by young people. Next, I worked to promote it. I shared my series with 27 AAPI organizations across Massachusetts and started a gift card campaign to encourage submissions. Then I shared my project at the Cambridge Somerville Asian Festival and set up a recording booth to film name stories on the spot. Overall, AAPI Unmuted has collected 13 episodes, nearly 10,000 views, and over 250 likes. But the numbers only tell part of the story. The heart of AAPI Unmuted is in the voices themselves. So here are a few of them.
Grace Sang, Annika Nina,
Minja Kuo,
Rasha Crystal,
Anthony Yoten Liu.
My name is Sugandha, Subekcha Durali, Nanisha Priyali, Manikumari, Karin Schneider, I'm Harman, Nina, Tina, Bhavika, and my name means emotions, happiness, fragrance, a sacred resting place or shrine,
Wisdom where you're sharing with others.
beautiful language, beautiful flower,
Indian princess. My parents named my brothers and I after the first three letters of the alphabet.
after the Harmandir Sahib, after a soap opera character, from the phrase 月儿东京女言, this figure skater in the Olympics the year that I was born. They just did a compromise and just did all of them.
Kind of has guided the way I live my life.
The German and the Indian side of my family, the deep meaning of my faith, how much history and meaning my name holds, motivates me to be passionate about all the different things that I do. I love my name, and I wouldn't have chosen a different name for myself.
So for next steps, I plan to continue collecting stories, bring them into schools and community events, and launch a survey exploring the impact of language on identity. And more than anything, I hope that this series has emboldened someone to start correcting mispronunciations, inspired someone to embrace their name or ask for the story behind it, and maybe even taught someone to try harder at giving others' names the respect and reverence that they deserve. I'd like to thank Ashley and Suvecha and the Youth Council for all of their help and support, and thank you all for listening.
Any questions, comments for Grace? Yes?
Yeah, well, my name is Tobin. I work for State Representative Trom Nguyen. I think it's really great. Like, I didn't know what a microaggression was until law school, so it's amazing to see how advanced and engaged y'all are. And Trom Nguyen actually did a video with Boston Globe explaining her name, because this is an important thing for people to know what these names mean and to really embrace the culture and to feel a part of the society. So I just want to say thank you for your project.
Thank you.
Everyone, my name is Jason Yin, and I'm
I
a
think we already watched this, sorry. Okay, next up is Bhavika Kalia, who is a junior at Somerville High School.
Okay,
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Pavika and I am a junior at Somerville High School, and this is my project. It's called Amplifying AAPI Voices Through Inclusive Curriculum. So just a brief introduction about my project is that I'm working to amplify AAPI voices through implementing culturally inclusive and comprehensive lessons into pre-existing curricula at Somerville High School. And initially I wanted to work on creating an elective course at my school, but I realized that's way more of a long-term process, so I chose to implement curriculum into pre-existing courses instead. So a brief, some of the steps that I took to reach my mission was that I collaborated with both the Somerville High School History Department and the Cambridge Region Latin School History Department. I attended meetings. For example, I met with Miss Jenny Chung, and there's a picture here, but she's a teacher at CRLS, and she teaches the Asian American Experiences Honors course, which was a fairly recent course at CRLS, so it was great to hear from her. And then I also attended some workshops, including the Yuri Education Project Beyond Margins AAPI History 101 workshop, which really helped me get a more concrete idea of what I wanted to implement. Okay, so the outcomes was that I was able to work super closely with the 10th grade history department in particular, because we had this recognition that all Somerville High School students have to take the U.S. History Themes course. And so we determined key units where AAPI-focused lessons could be integrated, and this included immigration and the civil rights movement. And I also utilized a bunch of different online resources to help me create these lessons and kind of put together different resources. And I also found out that really simple additions could be made to just have a little bit more representation. For example, including the Third World Liberation Strikes and the Yellow Power movement as case studies for an already made assignment. And these are some example lessons. I have printed out slideshows of them being passed around, but just to go into them a little bit. There's one about Asian Americans and birthright citizenship, and this was a very key lesson that I wanted to do, especially considering what's currently happening in the world. But I think this is such an important lesson because we really learn how integral Asian Americans were to birthright citizenship. And then there's also the cross-racial solidarity movements, and I think this is super important as well because we need to be, we really need to connect with other racial groups more than ever and really have that solidarity. And this was also really personal to me as a South Asian because it highlights how South Asians impacted the peaceful, or the civil rights movement and nonviolence tactics. And I think especially with the anti-Indian and anti-South Asian rhetoric happening these days, it's so important that our voices are highlighted in a positive light because there were so many great South Asian figures who impacted so much of US history. And to go into some of the community impact, the lessons I created will be implemented into the U.S. History Themes course this upcoming school year. And since all 10th graders are required to take this course, about 300 students each year will be taking the course, including the lessons that I created, which I thought was really amazing. And then I also made really strong connections with my Somerville High School was the history department, and they want to work more closely with me next year to work on the elective, which was really great. And then I also got recognized within the school by receiving the Highlander of the Quarter Award for my leadership in advocating for inclusive curriculum. And then I also had some educators reach out to me about wanting to incorporate more AAPI education, which I thought was amazing as well. And then going into the broader community impact, I was able to present my youth council project at a Somerville school committee meeting, and I really highlighted the significance of inclusive curriculum, and a lot of the school committee members were really happy to see the leadership that I was taking, and one of the members even thanked me for my vulnerability in turning kind of those feelings of isolation into action, because at Somerville High School, we only have about a 5% population of students identifying as Asian, so I mentioned how it was really easy for me to feel invisible at times. And then something that I'm really happy about is that a group of local AAPI advocates were empowered by my work, and Tina Liu, the founder of the Somerville Asian Family Network and Somerville's public engagement coordinator at SFLC, is spearheading an AAPI education subcommittee this summer as a result of being inspired by my presentation and my comments at the school committee meeting. So over the summer, they're going to be working towards different steps and figuring out a concrete way to incorporate AAPI education throughout the Somerville School District. And my work was also recognized at the Somerville Times, and it was featured in the Yeah, and so it was featured in a past edition of the newspaper, which is great. And these are like some of the different partnerships. And okay, yeah, so some of my next steps are, of course, creating more AAPI-focused lessons. I wanted to focus on the Dot Busters gang in particular because I learned about it actually for a research paper, and I realized that so many other people don't know about it, and it's such, I guess, an important part of history that we need to learn about because it keeps on repeating itself. And then also the novel Made in Asian America, A History for Young People. I want to work on a lesson that incorporates the novel because it's such a powerful piece of literature. And then also, of course, I want to expand reach, going into different classes. I only focused on history this year, which is kind of the one you would expect when it comes to AAPI education, but there's so much more we could go into, especially English courses and like highlighting like AAPI voices in literature. And then also, of course, the elective proposal. And, I really want to work with the SHS history department to spearhead the creation of the proposal. And I already have a great relationship with them, so it's looking good for the future. But yeah, thank you so much, and I'm open to any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for doing this. It was a very thoughtful topic. And so my question is about next steps. So I'm very curious, not only about your presentation, but about everyone, because your program will end with AAPI, right? So do you have any timelines for these next steps? Like not only you, like everyone. If you have it, like will happen, based on your results and everything, or you have like really a timeline. So I want to complete this because it's very interesting. I think you need to work on the next steps as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I can talk about it from my perspective. So I'm currently a junior rising senior, so I have another year in high school, and I will be reapplying to the AAPI Commission's Youth Council. But also, aside from that, I'm a student school committee representative, so I attend the school committee meetings, and we're also leading our own year-long project. So this is actually my year-long project for that as well, like focusing on inclusive education and really promoting that to the school committee. So I want to continue this for next year's project. So that's kind of my.
Yeah. Wish you all the best.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
I was just going to say that Rep. Wynn actually has an inclusive education bill that we've been working on to pass so that it be statewide. So I think this is really important work that you're doing and addressing an important need for educating people about different cultures and histories in the United States. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Last but not least, we have, Vienna Jung's project. She was not able to be here with us today, but she has a short summary of her project.
Hi, my name is Vienna Jung, and I'm from Western Massachusetts. Empower Initiative is a community-based organization I founded that's focused on helping AAPI kids from immigrant backgrounds who are struggling with school because they're not receiving the adequate academic support due to language barriers or the parents not being able to help them. We mitigate this issue by providing after-school tutoring in the high school library Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 3:15 to 4:30. And with the significant growth of the club, we realized that it was time to expand Empower Initiative in the form of chapters in order to reach more towns outside of our general area. So the challenge was that it was a very pivotal year for our organization, and we also needed to expand our marketing. Thankfully, the AAPI Council was able to fund us $100 in order to promote ourselves on Instagram, which allowed us to start our first chapter with the Xavier Brothers High School. We also created a new website, and please get in touch with us if you think anyone would be interested in starting their own chapter.
Okay, that of our Youth Council presentation portion of our program today. I would love to invite Bahara to commence the certificates of achievements for our wonderful Youth Council members.